totally use I would be like, oh, I was like, don't want to tell Miss Brooke, like, I want to be able to tell her that we did such a great job in circles, and like, okay, and I'm like, yeah, I remember, tell her you did such an awesome job.
What did you guys think about when you looked at the different assessment tools?
They're very helpful.
They are, huh? Very helpful. Can you guys see how some might work better than others?
And mom and dad can do that, like, okay.
Does anyone want to share their function that they figured out?
This game, it's a different game, it's not just to create that.
For your kiddo, yeah.
game. That would be something they could work on.
Got the toy you wanted?
We had a difficult time. It's you really have to investigate it to make sure that you know what the function is. Because our little girl, she was screaming and crying to get out of doing certain things, and she would be put in timeout. But then she would also rip up her brother's books or his pictures, and then she'd be sent to timeout. And at school, when a kiddo would approach her and want to play with her, she would scream at them and they'd leave. So we wondered if really the function was that it's working for her, because when she screams, she's put in timeout and gets to be alone.
So she doesn't want to be with.
Yeah, because she clearly at school didn't want to play with. She didn't want other kids to join her play situation, and she'd pick and scream and they'd leave.
And then she would walk away. That's what happened. She walked.
Or she would walk away.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I don't know if she was trying to do that, because, like Dad would say, you can't do this. And so we thought, okay, the antecedent is Dad asked her to do something that she doesn't want to do. And then the behavior is she kicks and screams, and then the consequence is timeout. But she continued doing that in multiple settings and kept going to timeout. And I wondered if that's what she really wanted. Was to
If she's avoiding
get out
peers.
of whatever it is she has to do. She doesn't have to pick up her toys if she goes to timeout.
And if she keeps getting up and walking away from friends, she's probably trying to, it seems like her behavior is showing us that she's trying to get away from people. She's trying to be alone.
And the kids are learning, oh, we're going to stay away from you.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
And two, it's hard sometimes, because sometimes you're looking at it and you're like, I'm not sure, I need more information, right? So sometimes we're like, okay, we've got to do a little bit more detective work. Does anyone else want to share?
I was biting and she got her way with toys, because same thing, kids were like, oh, she's going to bite me here, take my toy. They're scared of that.
So that function working, she wanted that toy.
But when you look at the wholesome picture, it's because she's having this aggression. She's staying with her foster mom, and she's meeting her mom only once in 3 weeks.
So that's one of those setting things that we were talking about. There's something happening at a different place in time that's affecting her.
Yeah,
And
big
she's
time.
very violent at school, like that was a complaint.
Her whole life is just
She's biting.
Yeah. Well, and that's another good reason why we want to know as much about that family as we can, so we can really support that kiddo.
We previously had a little boy that was fighting. He's from infants, young tots to older tots. And because we were trying different strategy, but one was, oh, well, he's maybe hungry, let's feed him. But in a way, is that almost a reward, or is it, it's trying to find that, what is actually triggering it? The parents are like, oh, he must just be hungry.
But that's a really good one with biting, because you never know. I mean, are they teething?
Right, and that's a common one. We were
Are
like, let's try
are
to
they
see theirs.
frustrated and they're biting because they want something and they're not getting it? There's a lot of reasons that kids choose to bite, and you kind of have to detective work that. But there are things like chewies and things that you can give them, like rubber tubing to bite on or chew on. Some kids are wanting that sensory input, and so they're using their mouth as a way to get a sensory input. So that plastic tubing we use a lot in our
Where do you
classroom.
get that? I need one now, like for one child. Where do you get that from?
Let's
Pet store, maybe.
let me ask Diane. Just what she does is she gets quite a bit of it.
They just
and then
buy it on a roll.
And then
That's
they
what I
always
mean.
tie it.
Yeah.
That way each kid has their own. But
Yeah.
Well, and I think Kathy Moyer actually
that my-
uses those,
oh,
those stretchy, like you had on your, yeah, as long as she takes off the keychain part and just does the plastic.
I can go get one and show you, but ours is like tubing, and it's just they actually buy it in different colors because there's different thicknesses that go for how much firmness they need to.
Interesting.
But that's another option of something where if you're finding maybe they're teething or something, rather than having to feed them every time, you can
Right.
give them a chewy where they can start to be independently self-soothing when they.
I said, because this little girl, I know she doesn't mean to put, everything's in her mouth and she just,
And that's a way to teach them, this is something
That'll
that
make
can be.
yeah, I know she needs to chew on something right now.
I'll go forward so you can see it. I'll ask her to buy it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So one thing to keep in mind too is making sure you're doing the research before you give a child something. Brooke and I, as one of our first years teaching together, we decided this, he really wanted, he needed something to chew on, and so we gave it to him. And Mom was really, really upset because she didn't like the idea of, her words were, my child is not a dog, I don't want him to have a chewy. And so that was a culture thing, and we didn't ask for permission, and she was upset, and we were able to come back to it. He did need it, but culturally she didn't want him to have it, so.
It was a visual stigma, she didn't want to associate
Yeah.
it with, she didn't want people to see that he was using that as a
Yes.
device. to-
So we felt really bad for offending her, but we were trying to help. We had good intentions, so we were able to come to a good place, but, oh, he's so cute. And two, an experience I had was, someone gave Everett, he was really, really wiggly at circle time and having a hard time sitting. And so they just gave him a slap back chair as a quick fix, and, I found out about it. They didn't talk to me at first about it. In his words, he was really upset about sitting in this chair because he felt like he was in trouble. He felt like he was singled out. And so he was really, really, really upset. And so when I talked to him about it and talked to the teachers about it, I found out that they gave it to him because he was wiggling, so they didn't ask me. And then come to find out after I talked to the occupational therapist and the speech therapist, the physical therapist, it was actually the worst thing for him because he has hypermobility, so his joints overextend, so it'd be like sitting in it like this the whole time, so his core was really, really weak. And so she was saying it's actually worse for him because then he's kind of like leaning forward, he wasn't sure how to sit, so she was actually doing more damage than good. And so really just kind of like, it really hinders that relationship because I was so frustrated with him. And I ended up having to switch classes, so I was just like,
Do they still do weighted vests?
They do sometimes,
Yeah,
yeah.
we have one in our
I
center.
wasn't sure if they still do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have weighted blankets, and
What's
But-
that? I'm sorry.
they have weighted blankets too.
Oh, really?
We have one of them.
But for them, that was just a quick fix because rather than saying, hey, are you guys seeing this? They were just looking for that quick fix, let's just try that, rather than really looking at it and saying, okay, what's going on here, and let's try to take a look at it and really taking the data and kind of figuring out what he needs. So, just kind of something to think about.
It's a
The
ponytail.
ponytail, oh.
She does not want to eat, she wants to see what's going on.
That's good, because we want to see her.
I like how she tips her head.
She was a peanut, and now she's so big.
I like her shoes.
She looks so cute.
You can go to the
Sorry for the distraction.
Oh, you're fine. She is not a
Oh,
distraction.
she is not.
She's
a
an
distraction.
inspiration. Yes, you are. Yeah, her and Solinga.
Someday you two will be having a tantrum on the floor. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll be detective work needed too. So data collection, team identifies data to collect based on goals, and one that really worked for them. I know that we've used that checklist so many times in our classroom. We'd have a stack of them, and it was just fill it up, fill it up, fill it up. And it's really nice to be able to just have a stack of them and be able to do that. So what, when, how, and who, when are we gonna collect this data? What part of the day is gonna work best? And like I said, it needs to be easy for everyone in the classroom to use. And having those stacks was nice because we had a therapist in there helping out with the class. They could even grab a sheet if they saw an incident and fill it out really quick for us. So it works really nice. Even if like in nap time, someone sees something where you're on break, be like, we have these over here, this is what we're saying, could you go ahead and take that down? Or if you do record yourself and you want to rewatch the video, then maybe you could do one of those lengthier ones to kind of look at it. So something to think about. So here is all those ones that are in your handout. So this is just a reference sheet on them. You guys have them all in the back, and you guys have that new packet with all of them actually in there without the second sheets. Our copier has them.
Which one do you guys like the best? I mean, like, I've always used ABC quite a bit, but is there one that you also used a lot that you thought was effective?
You know, I think it just really depends on the situation. I really like I really like the ones where you're doing the check-off things, but actually, after seeing the rating scale, I would rather have used that one a little bit more. So I think it just depends on the situation. Like, if you're gonna give this one to someone at home, that one's really nice too. So I think it just depends on the situation of what you like to use.
And it also depends on like how frequently you're talking about these things happening. If it's something that happens a couple times a day and they're like major incidents and you're able to go through and do that checklist. But if it's something like hitting and pushing, you might want some of those tally or ones like the scatter plot where you're just, it's happening a lot, you know, if it's something that's happening 10 times a day, you're not gonna have a chance to go fill out a whole form 10 times a day. So it kind of depends on what the behavior is too, because, and the frequency of it, to know how much time can you devote to data recording it.
Which is so true, because if they're hitting 10 times a day and you're monitoring that and you're feeling like, man, I don't feel like they're making progress, or the parents say, oh, I don't really feel like it, you can say, you know, we were seeing 10, but now we're seeing 7. And it might, 10 and 7 might look really similar, but unless you're doing those tally marks, you're not going to really see that difference between 7 and 10. So, something else to think about. So, the behavior rating scale, define the target behaviors. So you guys have this one in the back. Determine the dimension of the behavior that will be measured. So you're going to look at the frequency, the duration, how long it's happening, the intensity of it, the percentage of time, and how many opportunities. So this is kind of looking at the anchors for it. So if you look at it, so if the behavior's engagement. So this is, we kind of talked about this before. But a 5 would be looks independently, 1 is walks away, and you can kind of determine it in between there. Which is kind of a nice reference if you kind of have this before. As you're circling whatever number you feel like it is, it makes it really easy, and then you can see where it charts on there. Does not respond, so maybe you're going to make it does not respond at all, responds to adults and peers, and then you have percentages in between. Follows the daily schedule, so teacher points to an activity area, teacher provides initial physical prompts, but you can see how you can really determine how you're going to make it work for you. 5 to 8 or more times per day, and this is just what they made up. Maybe you're going to make it for yourself and make it look different depending on the age of the child, what they can do. You can really make your anchor points specific to what you want to see the kid do. You know, maybe for that little girl in Molly's class, Molly knows her limit right now is 2. So for her, following the daily schedule, right now we want her, if we're going to give her a 5, maybe she's going to be, a 1, she's going to do the activity the full 2 times. And then when we look at it later, maybe we're going to have her follow the 3 parts. And then we would change our scale up a little bit to make sure that it's meeting her needs and what she can actually do. So things to remember about data, keeping it simple, otherwise people won't collect it, and especially for people at home. Beware of too lengthy data collection. Think about it, family members collecting data, we really want them in on it, educational staff. If they have anyone working with them, you know, if you know that a kid in your practice is getting speech at home, and maybe you ask them to collect some data too, because all of that can tell us so many different things. Collect it in multiple settings if you can, and reinforce people for collecting data, making sure we're using that positive language with those parents at home and being specific, because it works with everybody, we know that. So some thoughts to ponder. You know, what if the parents or teachers are not willing to try new things, and how do I get buy-in from classroom teachers and parents? How do we get that dad that says, we just need to spank them more often? We do get that. That dad that says, this child is just lazy, he's so lazy. How do you get around that? Brooke and Molly had to face that. What if you don't have the resources to support the level of intervention needed? How are you going to figure that piece out? Because sometimes that happens and it's hard, Like you guys were saying, it's hard when you guys have to have teachers come in and out and train, so how are we going to get around these barriers? So next we'll be talking a little bit about the functional behavior assessment from CEFL and Prevent, Teach, Reinforce for young children. So this is the infant toddler behavior review. So questions to help gather information or data, because really when we're talking to parents about infants and toddlers, it's really about their behavior. So really looking at that. Questions to support hypothesis statements, and questions to assist for beginning of planning. And this is on handout 17.8. Oh, you're so sweet. Oh, she knows what she's doing. So defining the behavior, so just making sure we're asking them, so can you just describe to me what you're seeing? You know, can you, maybe they're gonna write down their schedule and when they're seeing this stuff. Frequency and intensity again, possible setting events, identify predictors or triggers, identify the maintaining consequences. So for Everett, it would be, you know, what was his consequence? He cried in the middle of the night and he got to breastfeed as much as he wanted. It worked for him and that's why he didn't sleep forever, right? So now I can look at it that, because I'm not sleep deprived and I'm not emotionally charged by it anymore. Now I can look back and really see that. So if only I could go back in time and change that, right? So really looking at previous efforts and identify possible reinforcers. So kind of looking at that. And you guys have that in your handouts as well. So prevent, teach, reinforce for young children, it's an entire thing. You could take an entire training on it, but it's actually a manual and it's a book, just kind of touching base on it, but it is an entire manual. It's really powerful. There's a webinar on it that I can send to you guys too, if you guys ever want to take a look at it. But it's really interesting. What's so nice about it, like I said, each thing is just totally manualed out. So it's going to help you every step of the way on what to do. But like I said, in order for you, like I wouldn't even know how to use it because I've never taken the training on it. I just know about it. So, but results are summarized and reviewed by the team and information is used to develop an intervention plan. So it's really, really powerful.
All right, so once we kind of have this functional behavior assessment, we've identified the trigger, we understand the behavior, we've looked at the consequence, and we know what the big picture looks like. Now we're going to develop the hypothesis, which is really just our best guess. If it doesn't work, we're going to go back and try again. So our hypothesis statement is something about the environment that's occurring to trigger the behavior. We're going to describe the behavior, we know the typical consequence, and now we know that when this happens, then this happens, and this is the result. We kind of have that if-then statement. So if we look at our little friend Brendan, when somebody asks him to go somewhere with the demand, he throws a tantrum, sometimes throwing an object in order to escape or avoid doing it. And sometimes he's allowed to continue, or the transition of going somewhere is prolonged. So that's what we've come up with in terms of the ABC. And our hypothesis now is in a paragraph form. Brendan is likely to tantrum, prolonged whining, crying, screaming, and dropping to the ground, and then sometimes throws objects when someone places a demand to go somewhere. When he tantrums and throws objects, he is sometimes allowed to continue playing, or the transition of going somewhere is prolonged. The result is temporarily escaping the transition or delaying going somewhere. So this is Brendan's hypothesis. If you were doing this for your first time and you were doing it, you'd probably keep some of these triggers. We would just focus on one, keep it simple. So we wouldn't necessarily bundle together throwing objects and having a tantrum, but we would keep it simple. But this is his hypothesis, and this is what we're going to use going forward to create his behavior support plan. So, you guys have your vignettes with your data that you collected. You've got your ABCs of what's going on with Quan and all the little people that are in the vignettes. And we're going to take some time for you to work together and come up with your hypothesis. And then guess what? You get to use it next time too. So.
And I'll put it back on Brendan so you guys can see that one.
Does anyone have any questions? Let's see.
Okay, so we're,
Is it already done? Yeah, we do.
So yeah, you're going to take your...
You wrote an amazing. Well, I noticed they had one that had already.
What are we
filled out
writing
the
on?
You can write it just on it.
Well, peruse your materials and see what you have. And you can see if you agree with it, yeah.
I can write it, I can flip.
Write it on your junk handout. Maybe we'll do that. So.